Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our session on leveraging COSAL with the cloud partners to scale revenue and boost efficiencies. Today, I have invited three guests that I get to work with on a daily basis. Lindsay Kramer, the Director of Business Development for the Microsoft practice over at VMware. Thank you, Lindsay, for being here. Mauricio Astachio, the Senior Director of Global Cloud Alliances for Microsoft Worldwide over at HashiCorp. And Thad Keating, the VP of Cloud and Security GTM over at Commvault. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. Excited to be here.
All right, so we're just going to dig in. We've got 45 minutes to share with our audience all of this amazing wisdom and experiences that you guys have had over the years. The first question I thought would be good just to kind of warm us all up and get the conversation flowing is give the audience a sense of sorry, before we do that, let's start off with just share a little background about your company's current cloud go-to-market strategy and the role you've had in that journey. Let's start with Lindsay.
Okay.
You've been with VMware now for 2-ish years.
Yep. Thanks so much, Aaron. Hey, everyone. Like Aaron mentioned, my name's Lindsay. I'm a hyperscaler business development director here at VMware. I've been in the role for a little under 2 years. I know maybe it feels a little bit longer, Aaron, that we've been working together, but it hasn't even been 2 years yet. But so even in the 2-ish years that I've been in role, the way that VMware works with all the major hyperscalers has evolved quite a bit. And depending on which hyperscaler we're talking about, we're in different stages of maturity with all of the different providers. I'm largely focused on our relationship with Microsoft, which one for us that is super mature. And again, even in the time that I've been here, we've hit some pretty major milestones with them around co-selling, around getting solutions on the marketplace, bringing them into our cloud universal program, which is kind of the cornerstone of VMware's multi-cloud strategy. But to really zoom out and talk about the why behind our cloud GTM strategy, it all has to do with the customer. Most of our customers who are large enterprise organizations, that's largely who VMware works with, they're all thinking about some sort of hybrid or even cloud first model. And even if they're not there today, VMware wants to make sure that we have all the tools and solutions to meet them wherever they are at on their migration and modernization journey, which means we have to have tight relationships with all the hyperscalers.
Thanks, that's Aaron. Such a good point. I think a lot of times we hear that, from ISVs, and it's really important, to meet your customers where they're at and to be available across all the hyperscalers. Mauricio, do you want to share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. I've been here at HashiCorp close to 3 years now, and it's been just an evolution of my front row seat in all things cloud. Really, working closely with all the cloud providers for the last 10 years has been a privilege. But specific to HashiCorp, I think, and to your question, our products are pretty integral part of the customer migration and transformation journey. So they really have become the standard for how practitioners provision, secure, and network cloud resources. And I think because of this widespread adoption in the ecosystem, and really, frankly, out of this desire to meet our customers, of course, where they are and help them in their own cloud journey, we knew pretty early on that partnering with the cloud providers made a ton of sense. So, from a go-to-market and co-sell perspective, of course. I'd say today, I like to think that we're pretty far along in the journey ourselves, and of course we've made significant investments in co-sell operations and of course marketplace. So now beyond that foundational element, my role is to articulate and set the strategy moving forward for the more programmatic ways that we can be partnering with the CSPs to continue to meet this growing practitioner community where they are and where they're headed.
Yeah. And you are seeing more and more of your customers wanting to move to the cloud in more than one way and to actually purchase some of those cloud services through the marketplaces.
Yeah, of course. I mean, marketplace has really become, almost a default procurement vehicle for a lot of organizations. There's still, I think, a lot of customers that are beginning to dip their toe there and adopt. But certainly, I think cloud and is really synonymous with new consumption patterns. And I think a lot of those really come to life in marketplace.
Yeah, I like that, new consumption patterns. Thad, do you want to give a little bit of background on your company's current cloud go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, Aaron, thanks again for having me here. This is great. Similar to Lindsay and Mauricio, Commvault is a multi-cloud company, and I would say our technology has really sort of outpaced our go-to-market strategy when thinking about co-selling with our cloud partners. I've been at Commvault now for a little over 3 years. I came on board and have been busy building Commvault's first foray into a SaaS platform, which was Metallic. Happy to say now publicly, we just announced a couple of weeks ago, within the past 3 years, we took Metallic from 0 to 100 million in ARR. So huge celebration. And during the past,
Congrats.
I would say, year and a half of that, we really started to see our partnership with Microsoft, specifically around Metallic, really begin to scale, and the co-sell engine really start to mature. And it was sort of in that, over the past year, thinking through like, what does the next 100 million look like? What's the path to 250 and 500? And really maturing this co-sell model with our cloud partners, with all of our cloud partners, is going to be foundational to that strategy to grow. Right. So, my focus right now in this new job is figuring out how to do that. And, it was great in the previous sort of opening session with talking about, maturing operations, providing dashboards for your executive team. All of those things is exactly where my head is right now, because we've got to articulate a more mature sort of message around the leverage we're getting through this co-sell, this go-to-market investment. So that's where we are with Commvault right now. And again, super excited to be here today.
Yeah, no, I think, thank you for sharing. And that's so important. Like what you said is so important about implementing the foundational piece for scale, and that we have to be thinking about it now, not when we have the pain, and plan for that, versus like, oh, we'll address it when we get there, right? Like, it's going to actually be the thing that helps us get there, not, oh, we'll deal with the pain once we feel it.
Yeah, we've brute forced our way to where we are today, right?
I don't think you're alone, by the way. I think a lot of people do that, right? It's like, I'm just gonna like roll up my sleeves and like figure it out. And then you get to that tipping point where you're like, okay, we can no longer brute force this. Like, we've got to put in the technology and the processes and the rigor of the people managing the process and the technology to really get that scale.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. I'm going to start with you, Mauricio. How did you go about getting aligned with your cloud partners in the early stages of your co-sell relationship? You've been there now 3 years. Where was the relationship when you first came in, and like, how did you work on getting that alignment going, so that you could get more of your like specifically you're with Microsoft, so getting Microsoft to lean in more to the partnership?
That's a great question, and I have to say, brute force, brings back memories for sure. But I think we may be somewhat unique in that. I mentioned earlier that we're pretty key to this, migration and transformation journey on the customer side, and from at least a Microsoft perspective, and I think this is not unique to them from our CSP experience, but this journey really had strong roots on the technical side of things. So we've been co-engineering and co-innovating along with the CSPs for quite some time. So in a way, it was a pretty natural next step to partner more broadly and fundamentally answer the question, why are we building these beautiful things that our customers are leveraging every day, on the co-sell and on the go-to-market side of the house, right? And to really say, let's meet the customer where they're at and make these things available to them. So, not surprisingly, I feel like we started like many folks on this panel, and more than likely in the audience, maybe in the process of doing themselves, but really building out the plumbing for co-sell, defining these processes, both internally and with the CSP. What is defining and identifying what is the best practice around these engagements, right? What does good look like? And so there's a fair bit of work that goes into that. These are all fairly new motions for folks. So I think building the plumbing is kind of something that was thankfully done by the time that I had arrived here, but really driving to that excellence and figuring out how do we do more of this, and how do we accelerate more of our deals, leveraging these co-sell programs. That's really been a lot of the foundational elements for us. I think fast forward to today, and I'd say we're running at a pretty good clip there. And not to mention, marketplace has really been kind of the next evolution, I think, of the kind of block and tackle co-sell motion. So, luckily that's really now part of our mainstream sales motion. So we put a fair bit of work into that.
And would you say maybe one of your strategies in the beginning to pick something, whether it was a use case scenario or a customer segmentation or an industry, and start small and kind of test out you've co-built and co-engineered the solution. Now it's time to bring it to market to our shared customer base. And instead of just opening up the floodgates and saying come one and all, did you guys start small? And what was one of the ways that you started small?
Yeah, I think really it's a bit of a science experiment, right? So you definitely start out with this hypothesis, and then from there you really want to say let's have a control environment, and let's start small, and then let's test this hypothesis out. So when we look at where our customers are using our tooling, how they're using it, we're really able to have that conversation not in a vacuum, but we're really doing that alongside with the cloud provider and saying, how does this match up with your use cases, and how are you talking about this part of the customer journey? And then framing out that one, section to go and really validate, does this carry water? Is this thing that we're building, and is this thing that we're bringing to market really what customers want? And I think, the scale is tremendous, right? So you do have to be, at the risk of using a overused cliche, right? You don't want to boil the ocean. You want to find where the early successes and then build from those.
I think that is I think that's so important, that experience share of test out your hypothesis. Part of cloud go-to-market is marketing. And in marketing, we do A/B testing, and we have hypotheses, and we test them, and we've got to fail fast, learn from them, prove out our hypothesis, and then build upon that. And so it's so great that you guys also kind of giving the same experience share to the audience. Thad, what about you? How did you go about getting aligned with your cloud partners in the early stages? Did you kind of have the same test out the hypothesis kind of approach?
I think we probably got lucky in the sense that we had to pick one cloud partner up front to build the platform with, right? And because we were doing that, and because of the space that we're in, where we are, I think overall Commvault has somewhere around 15 to 20 exabytes of data under management. We were a very attractive partner for Microsoft from the very beginning, and so when we decided to develop with them, the go-to-market, sync with them was sort of obvious out of the gate. But I'll tell you, I was thinking about things that we're doing today that seemed just so obvious that were completely lost on us. A couple of years ago, we first initiated really a more formal co-sell, partnership. And one of those things that I remember is, thinking that marketplace listings was co-sell, right? And that's not true. Just because you're on the marketplace does not mean that you've got a real solid co-sell strategy in place, right? And so really connecting the dots, those two, has been something that we've been working on over the past couple of years. The other thing that we got right early on, which and I think Lindsay and Risha made a mention of it around MPO or CPPO, we're a very channel-oriented company, and when we first started going to market, we felt like that was going to be a hindrance versus a value. And as we've learned to sort of, solve those problems, we deployed a P2P program, right? That was a mutually valuable program for our partner, for the customer, for Microsoft, and for us. And it was one of the most successful programs that we had ever launched. And it was because we took the time to figure out the what's in it for me for all four parties, right? And we were able to, using some of the Microsoft programs, put that in market and go drive that. And it became a really good anchor point for the entire co-sell and go-to-market strategy with Microsoft in the beginning. So, it's interesting looking hindsight, kind of what did we get right, what did we get wrong behind us, and then also as we look forward, the things that we've just learned over the last, I would say even 100 days, and how that's going to impact our go-forward strategies. Even, I would say even more interesting because, we've come a long way, but there's one thing I love about this space is we're all learning every single day, right? This model has just such a huge gravitational pull to it that the opportunity is there. We just have to go align and activate it.
Yeah, it's true. I love this space. It's always evolving, and as things always evolve, there's always an opportunity to learn and grow, and continue to be a part of that evolution. I like what you said about, like, in Mauricio's experience share, it started with like co-engineering and co-building, and then how did you figure out like where to start to go to market? And for you, in the experience you shared, is in your early days, it was important to you to continue to keep your channel partner very involved in how you were going to go to market, and whatever that this new way is, a way that it works for everyone, and finding the what's in it for them, and then making sure that that continues to be honed in on and go to market on that messaging and that solution, so that all parties, stay with you. I really like that. Lindsay, from VMware's perspective, and over the last 2 years, you've actually, like, I would say it's you, even though you've only been at VMware 2 years, we've been supporting VMware for only like 3.5, 4 years. And so you pretty much were in like the early, I would say you were right in like the early phases of truly like getting that co-sell engine going, because at VMware, there's so many business units that we are supporting and really making all of the VMware portfolio available to your customer base. So it took a little longer in the early, like our early stage took longer because there's just such a breadth of product.
Yeah, well, and I think we have both things in common with what Mauricio and Thad were both saying, right? The channel is extremely important to VMware. So that's something we've had to keep in mind along, every step along the way. And co-engineering was a big part of it in the beginning. VMware, obviously, like most of its business has been built around on-premise workloads. Even today, like stats are out there that say VMware's got 70-some million workloads that are on-premise, right? So in the very beginning, working with any hyperscaler like Microsoft, it had to do with the migration tools, which was that co-engineering relationship. Like we had to have a tool for our customers to easily move their workloads into a hyperscaler environment. And so when we started working with Microsoft and, Aaron and your team to stand up the co-sell process, we had to select the solutions, beyond that migration experience that we saw the biggest market opportunity for. So we had to use data. We knew that, we hadn't done this before. Microsoft hadn't done it before with us either, right? So we had to look at the data, identify, maybe 1 or 2 areas where you see a large opportunity. And to echo that sentiment you were talking about earlier, like starting small is the absolute way to go. Like don't try to tackle every single area in the world at once with every single product in your portfolio and try to get them all into the co-sell program and into the marketplace immediately. Like identify an area where you...
I feel overwhelmed just by that statement. I'm like, oh, that's...
Oh my God, I know. That's like, I can't even get it fast enough. There's too much going on. But identify, an area where your solutions have good synergy with the hyperscaler you want to work with, right? Like where can we augment what the hyperscalers are trying to do? Where do we see good market opportunity based on the data that we have, right? From organizations like Tackle or the hyperscaler or our own data about how we want to go to market, and then get some success under your belt, right? Like early on, we were focused on a couple of, even when I started 2 years ago, right? We were really only focused on a couple of key regions and a couple of like very strategic solution plays. And, over the last couple of years, we've been able to expand that. And I mean, today we've got like dozens of SKUs in the co-sell program and in the marketplace. And we do have a pretty strong global presence. We do still, we're still a pretty like lean team. We have to like pick and choose which areas of the world and which areas of our business we want to like put a ton of effort behind. But we do have a much bigger operation than we did even 2 years ago when I got here. But I love that we're talking about co-engineering too, because that's a really big part of, the overall life cycle of the partnership. And it wouldn't have started without that piece, right? Like we needed a solution that fit into that very early migration path, right? And then all the other stuff comes on top of it.
Yeah. And I think I think this engineering message is important. And I just want to kind of take a moment to say, like, when you decide to co-sell, you are deciding, okay, if we're going to co-sell with a cloud provider, we are making a conscientious decision to co-engineer, to co-build, to create a joint solution, a joint value proposition, to bring that to market. And then how are you going to go co-sell that solution out in the market, both with your brand, with your sales organizations selling together, both through the marketplaces and the ways in which you can get your product out there and procured and distributed in the ecosystem of your partnerships. Like co-sell is all of those pieces. We're going to co-build, we're going to bring it to market together, we're going to co-brand, we're going to co-sell with our sales organizations, and we're going to co-sell within our ecosystem. And all of that holistically is co-sell. Co-sell is not just seller to seller. It's not a platform. It's an activity, and it's a conscious decision that you guys have made at the product level. It starts at a product level and then evolves into like, now we got to put a whole go-to-market motion around taking this product and getting it to our customers. So I love that, like the engineering piece. Thank you guys for sharing that commonality across all, because it is so important. Okay, so with that, each of your companies do have quite a large product portfolio. What have been some of your lessons learned about evaluating your go-to-market strategy for your products? You started to talk about it a little bit in like your early days and getting that alignment of co-sell. Now, can you talk about like when you started looking at your portfolio and figuring out which products and when and how? One of the decisions you also have to think about is marketplace, and how do we make that product available to procure through the marketplace, but also looking at the marketplace not just as there's two ways for procuring. There's the self-service model of I want to make my product be available to be purchased, provisioned, deployed, build, all of it, self-service through the marketplace. And then there's we're still kind of like need to do really selling to the customer. And at the end of the sales cycle, the procurement vehicle will be the marketplace for that opportunity. So there's kind of this like how you're approaching your marketplace strategy and looking at your portfolio to see like, do you have opportunities for self-service? Have you guys taken any of that route? And if you have, like, what's been your experience with that and like balancing the portfolio and the overall business? It's a pretty loaded question. I'm going to start with Thad because of where Metallic and Commvault, it's kind of two organizations have come together as one. I'm curious what your marketplace evolution has been on the portfolio side.
Yeah, that is the big question, Aaron. It's great when you have a big portfolio because you can service big chunks of the market, right? Your TAM is large, and your successes, there's no shortage of places to take your portfolio to scale and grow, right? It becomes a challenge when you're introducing what could be a fairly new go-to-market strategy and trying to pick, okay, well, which part of the portfolio, which part of the segmentation, which persona are we going to pursue that makes the most sense, right? And again, the way you talk, Aaron, you have your PhD in all of this, and I feel like such a neophyte as we thought about it a couple of years ago. And well, let's just throw it all out there and see what happens, right? But it's true, right? So Lindsay was talking about engineering, right, and the data, and it's so true because when we started putting Metallic at the marketplace first, right? And even to do that, we had to have some really good sort of engineering alignment with what are we going to put out there, what's the customer experience, and how are they going to procure, and then what is our engagement model with that customer once it happens, right? And then it sort of like dominoes into, okay, well, what's our customer success model going to look like? What's the renewal model going to look like? What happens when a channel partner shows up? So all of that stuff has to be considered when you think about what your marketplace strategy is. But I would tell you, if you wait to get all of that perfect, you're never going to be on the marketplace, right? So
Yeah.
we put it out there, and and really we put it out there with the intent of capture the data, right? Who's going? What's the customer experience? We found a lot of trials were being kicked off, right? That really still needed that personal touch and that engagement to make sure that we got them over the finish line. We tried to put some other things out of the marketplace that weren't really a good fit, whether it be based on segment or based on product. And so, I would tell you that we used the opportunity to just learn a whole lot, and we went into that with that mindset. We didn't go into the mindset and say, hey, we're going to list it and we should expect another 50 million in bookings, right? Like we went in with, hey, let's put it out there and let's see what happens. And the interesting part about that really never manifested itself inside the marketplace. It did manifest itself in our sales conversations with our customers, because then they began to bring it up and the customer started engaging with us, asking more questions about, oh, that's interesting. And that's how we got into private offers, right? And the private offers for us were much more successful because our buyers, a little bit upmarket, they have those MAC agreements, right? Or they have EDPs with AWS, right? And that began sort of like this next wave of learning around how we're leveraging marketplaces, how we're thinking about them across our portfolio, how we think about them in our just overall go-to-market cycle, that we're the flywheel that we keep spinning. And right now, I would tell you that now we're just trying to keep up with the pace of engagement of the market versus us sort of like trying to figure out what the market's doing. So a lot of engineering, a lot of co-marketing, a lot of co-selling, a lot of enablement, like all of that stuff is happening real time right now. But it continues to be just an ongoing learning process for us. That flywheel, I would say, is high speed right now.
I like what you said in the beginning of that experience share, and I hadn't thought about it that way, which is like, let's put some products out there, not expecting it to actually like be this revenue generating machine for us, or that we're going to get it right out of the gate.
Well, we hoped, but it wasn't part of the justification.
Of course, like, right. But that we put it out there to actually learn from the behavior so that we can understand where to go invest more time and resources into maybe productizing that to the next level of, could we take this product and build it to actually, I always joke about like, you had like born in the cloud partners was like a thing a couple, 5, 6, 7 years ago. People were like, oh, I'm a born in the cloud software company. And like, well, now it's like, are you a born in the marketplace company? Meaning like, did you build your software to truly function in a marketplace in a self-service model? And as we're all trying to transform our business, like that approach of like, let's put it out there to figure out, could we then take that technology that's getting traction and attention and our customers seem to want to, purchase that way in the marketplace, and actually spend the engineering investment to take it to the next level of a self-service model?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Trisha from Wiz blew my mind earlier when she said that's how they started. They started with that whole model in mind. And I was like, oh, that's
born in the marketplace.
Yeah, right.
Lindsay, how about VMware? And like, as you guys are looking across your extensive portfolio of products?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have to think about, I mentioned this earlier, but like how we fit into hyperscaler sales motions. Like there are thousands of ISVs that these hyperscalers can spend their time with, and their sellers are all super, super busy. So it's important for you to, think about solutions where like your incentives are aligned, right? Like, and when we're thinking, like, you have to have synergy, right, with the sales teams in order for you to get anywhere with them. And for the marketplace, VMware, for the large enterprise organizations that, we primarily work with, we're selling through private offers today in the marketplace. And again, that's just like a reflection of how we're set up to do business. I mean, even standing up private offers for us involves quite a bit of behind the scenes operational work, which we know the tackle team is very familiar with because you've been helping us since the beginning. So, I mean, while private offers is largely what we are doing today, we do also, we got a solution that I guess this is a new fun term, right? Born in the marketplace. We do have a newer SKU that I would say is born in the marketplace, right? It is the only way for a customer to purchase it today. And we use, while it is sold as a private offer, we actually use like a standard and pay-go self-service model of that product as a funnel for us to be able to sell the enterprise version of the solution that gets stood up as a private offer for the customer. So it's something that we think about, a whole lot. Again, and all
That's
of
so exciting.
Yeah, I know. Well, and it's big for VMware, right? And
yeah, that's huge.
It's new for us, right? And this is one where this was one that we co-engineered with Microsoft. This is one where we believed that there was a really big opportunity based on the analysis that we had done together, right? Like there was investment on both sides to bring the solution to market. And now we're in the early stages of the sales cycles, right? Like how's it going to do? What's landing? What's not? Where are the areas where we see the most opportunity? So that's been a really exciting one for us. But pretty much everything else we do as a private offer through the marketplace.
Yeah. I left Mauricio for last because of the nature of Hashi's business and being an open source product and your community, and then how you guys have gone about your marketplace approach is a little different. So I'd love for you to share a little bit of Hashi's experience in the marketplace.
Yeah, gladly, Aaron. Yeah, I think, for us, it's been a little bit unique, right? I mean, I think the first thing that we really want to call out about marketplace, to Thad's point earlier about, co-sell and marketplace, being a little bit, they're not interchangeable with each other, right? I'd say that when it comes to marketplace, and I think you pointed this out earlier, there's marketplace and then there's marketplace. There's self-transactability, and then there's being able to transact as private offers. Probably the most important thing to call out is that out of the largest companies in the world by market capitalization, in the top 10, 3 are enterprise IT companies, and they are our CSP partners, and they're really shaping how customers are consuming their IT budgets and how they're going to spend those. So I think that for us it was really a matter of, because our products are so integrally part of this customer migration point, and the customer's already making these investments with the cloud provider, the first thing that we should do is at least make that consumption possible in marketplace. So today we are primarily doing private offers in marketplace. I think I heard Thad also mention, customer experience. We do a lot of work with the customer to kind of build out a cloud center of excellence, or to stand up a platform team to more coherently leverage cloud as a shared service. And I think that that's what really keeps us busy, and where we put a lot of the focus on is, what does that experience look like? And while we may have built services that are SaaS services across the cloud providers, so that customers don't have to spend the time managing the associated infrastructure and all of those bits, and they can just consume the product as a SaaS service, I think that there's still that final frontier of what is the right metering setup, what is the right consumption model for the customer. And frankly, it does become an engineering and a resourcing bandwidth. Love what Lindsay said about it really being a team sport to get a private offer out the door for a customer. And I think that there's still a fair bit of work involved in doing that. I think the self-transacting nature of the product is kind of the next evolution of things. But you can't ignore, again, that scale of the numbers behind the cloud provider dollars. And of course, if you look at that from a marketplace perspective, there's undoubtedly dozens of millions of monthly active users across the marketplaces. So that is something that for each product, for each ISV out there is probably going to be a little bit of a different journey, but it warrants that inspection, right? To say where's the right product, to land on marketplace from a self-transaction perspective.
And it's the balance, right? It's like some of your customer segmentation in order to get to your total addressable market, right? Some of our addressable market, like a self-service model to clip away at, is like the sufficient way for them. And then for some of our bigger customers, doing that private offer and procuring it in that custom pricing with our partners and keeping everybody involved is still important. So I don't think it's like you should have one or the other. I think it's like, how do we hit our total addressable market by providing both methods for all different shapes and sizes of customers and the way in which they want to buy and their experience. Okay, last question, because we have 9 minutes to go. We were so worried, 45 minutes. We're like, we're going to be fine. We could talk forever. And I'm actually getting rid of a question. So we're going to end on this question, which is, what are some of the biggest challenges you have run into? And what advice can you provide to our listeners on how to overcome some of those challenges? So, it's never an easy, what we do is not easy. So what have been some of those challenges? I know you just ended, Mauricio, but like, I'd love for you to just give, one challenge you've had and some advice.
Yeah, sure. I'd say, I mentioned this is a team sport. So I think, all of us do this, co-sell marketplace thing all day, every day, but it's really important to recognize that for a lot of the other key stakeholders within the organization, this is all going to be completely brand new, right? Your finance teams, sales operations, legal, not to mention, potentially hundreds or thousands wide sales force. They've been doing things very differently for a very long time. And so each one of these functional areas will really need to be educated and enabled along the way. I'd say, the biggest challenge is that you're not just doing this more than likely across one cloud provider. You may find yourself doing it across 3 or more. And so, you really want to document things early, document them often, and realize that you're going to be doing it again across, 3 different marketplaces. So as they change, for example, the way that they publish a private offer or launch a new feature or a pilot program, you're going to need to translate that to, 3 or more different stakeholders within the organization. So, it's
are you telling me enablement's never a never-ending thing?
It's an iterative process. You'll never stop doing it. So just when you think you've got it down, there's a new pilot program, there's a new way of doing things,
the sales organization changes. You've got new sales people coming into the company.
Absolutely. So it's a good way to to stay active, to stay fresh, and to keep learning, really.
Yeah, it feels kind of like job security. You're going to always need to be doing this enablement thing. That's so great. Thank you. Lindsay, you have an experience share?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So everything Mauricio just said, we share it. I think the one I'm going to focus on is for VMware. It's largely like this compete friction between our teams, right? VMware, and like insert whatever hyperscaler you want into the conversation. Like historically, VMware has competed with those organizations. So when you are talking to a seller or a sales team, and maybe they've had an experience where they get burned by a customer going to a hyperscaler native offering versus whatever it is that they're trying to sell, talking about co-sell or even the marketplace, it's a challenge, right? So it goes back to like enablement. Even co-sell has evolved a lot over the last 2 years. Marketplace is now a really big part of the co-sell story, but like making sure that sellers in your organization understand that and what the value is to them is super, super key. So, so my recommendation that I have in order to get over that challenge, right? And we're by no means over it, right? Like it is a challenge that we're going to continue to encounter over and over and over again. Because even in the areas where like we do augment each other very, very well, there are still going to be areas where, we do compete with a hyperscaler. So like, my recommendation is to just make sure that you have the like what's in it for you message for both the hyperscaler organization as well as your own sales teams down, crystal clear. You're talking to a sales team. make sure they know how they get paid, make sure they know how the other side gets paid, so you can clearly articulate how the incentives are aligned. And then once you get some wins, because there are areas where you are going to, work really well together, get those stories under your belt and start sharing them, because sellers especially, like, they pick up on momentum and they see, hey, this is working really well for this other team, I want to make it work for me. So tell the story over and over again.
Yep. And clear as kind. Like, why are we doing this? Don't just get into this motion of like pushing data around and like sharing opportunities, share opportunities. Like, there's meaning behind it. And we want to also make sure we're like kicking off those engagements correctly with the right messaging. And we've done the enablement so that when they get to that introduction of meeting their counterpart at the cloud partnership, like they're ready to go to have a meaningful conversation, to really show up as one united front to the customer, one joint solution, one joint team to that customer to really help them. We'll end with Thad. So Thad, what has been one of the challenges you've run across and advice that you have?
Well, first off, I'd like to say, the ×2 for both Mauricio and Lindsay, what they just called out, because they're spot on. Those are things that are not unique to HashiCorp or VMware. Those are, I think, consistent, right? I always say, like, we've got some very tough executives at Commvault, but they're fair, right? And when, being in go-to-market as long as I have, I always try to think in terms of go-to-market strategies that are going to be additive, right? What's going to be additive to our growth? What's going to be additive to our profitability? What's going to be additive to our sales capacity and scaling? And hindsight, right, always being 2020, I think one of the lessons that I've learned through this, that if I could rewind the clock and go back again, is I would help the company define what true north is as we think about our cloud go-to-market strategy, right? What is the definition of success? What are we all aiming for? And I would have spent a bit more time in getting everybody on the same page as to really what the charter is, right? Because, I mean, for any big, I think, entity, right? Like, there are go-to-market and revenue streams that have deep, deep ruts, right? They work, they've been tweaked, they've been specialized, they have been optimized, they've been invested in, and that's how the company makes money, right? And so you're showing up and you're offering a different lens. And if they don't understand what the overall objective of that lens is and how it's going to be additive to what we're already doing, then sometimes they just have the immediate response is to reject, right? So, my advice is set north, get collaborate with the leaders, make sure everybody understands why we're doing it, what we're doing, and that way, as you move forward and you get that flywheel going of fail fast and pivot, you'll have the support that you need. So.
And that's so true. Like, when you set north, right, then all the other decisions you need to make, it just starts to like snap in, and decisions can be made faster when you know your North Star.
That's right.
It'll all start to make sense. And then you do start to just get that natural flywheel going, and, get that momentum and that muscle. It's really like a muscle you're building inside the organization. Something Mauricio said earlier that reminded me, this co-sell, like your cloud go-to-market strategy, the operations that are there that need to be there to support it, it's sneaky hard. Like, it's sneaky complicated sometimes, and ×3 across your cloud providers. I remember when I started Core Consulting, it was to really help Microsoft partners better utilize all the great partner programs and tools. And throughout helping partners do that, when Microsoft launched the co-sell program, which was a tool to engage at scale with their sales organization around a customer, I was like, okay, I'm going to show ISVs how to use this tool so that they can start to engage and their sellers with their counterpart. And then I'll teach them how to do it, and I'll be on to the next ISV and I'll teach them how to do it. And it quickly became no, we don't actually want to learn. We just want you to do it for us. And I was like, dang, I thought I was going to teach you how to fish. And they're like, I don't really want to fish for you. And then throughout the experience, it became, how about we fish together? And I fish alongside of you and we do this together. And what is our North Star and how are we trying to go to market? And what is the partnership strategy that we're trying to create here? And then how do we build an operating model to support that? And then how can I help you in that experience? There's people, processes, technology, like how can we help support you? Because we are this lean, mean alliance team and we have a lot to do with little resources. So how can we infuse that with people, processes, and technology? So it's been quite an experience over the last 10 years thinking like, I'm going to teach you how to fish, to fishing alongside of you and building out a suite of best practices and experiences, proven processes and frameworks, and then coupling that with people and technology.
I love it.
We are at time. I invite all of you to join us. There's like a 15-minute after this session lounge that you can join. I'm going to pop over to there and help you with any of the questions that you were asking in the chat. So Q&A session over in the lounge. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Thanks, Erin. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Erin.
Bye. Have a great rest of your XP day.